Hello everyone, Michael Chave here from the Aquascape Odyssey channel. Today we're going to be going through an in-depth conversation about algae and it being a problem in your tank. And what I'm going to tell you is how some of your fish and even some of your shrimp can help solve that problem effortlessly while you're going through and adding them and deciding what to add into your tank so you don't have to do as much maintenance. Let the fish and shrimp do it for you. So let's jump in and talk about some of the most beneficial. We'll do just 5 things that I add into my tank to help fight the traditional algae problem you have in your tanks. So first and foremost, let's bring up my favorite, the Amano shrimp. So the Amano shrimp is actually in the Caridina genus, except it doesn't kind of fall into that very strict water parameter within your aquarium from a Caridina in terms of GH and KH, right? So you can actually add it into any of your aquariums, and it's easy to get these. They're very cost effective, and I love having them as well. You start seeing some clips of them as I start talking about it. They are larger than traditional shrimps. They're great to have, and they traditionally eat any algae except for hair algae and black algae. But any other algae off of any of your plants, any of your hardscape, they just go through and decimate any of that algae in your aquarium. So I would say a must-have in any aquarium setup, definitely number 1, the Amano shrimp. Now let's go on to number 2. Number 2, I found out recently and kind of started using them in my 20-gallon that's behind me for my wood and Anubis algae breakouts. So around the Anubis, you start getting some small little circular type of algae growing on them. And the best way to combat that and also on my wood is Plecos. So you can go through, and I only have a 20-gallon tank, you can go through and find small baby Plecos at your local fish store before they grow out. They usually take 2 to 3 years to grow out to a larger size. If you can go through and find smaller ones, I found ones that are around 1.5 inches to add into my tank, an orange Pleco. I think it's like a fire red Pleco. I don't know. You'll see the names in the description below. And then some albino Plecos too. So I went through and purchased some of those, and you start seeing the albino Pleco and some of the orange Pleco. I only have 3 in this 20-gallon tank. Go through and they actually break off and eat any algae that's on wood. So if you do have wood, any hardscape, so any round, I would say, rock, they like to go through and eat any algae that's on there. And even on your Anubis's plants as well, they'll go through and start eating those. They like the round foliage or just even foliage itself that has a lot of surface area to build up. In conjunction with that, we'll go right into number 3, which is a must-have always. If you're not going to go and you're worried about the larger fish from a Pleco size and you can't find any small Plecos in your local aquarium store, just be aware some Plecos are carnivore and they're not going to be more algae eaters. So just be aware when you're going through and getting them. But the number 3 spot goes to Otocincluses. Otocincluses are a must-have, and I probably should have put it in the number 2 spot, but Otocincluses are amazing to have in your aquarium, and they don't grow large, especially from like a nanoscape perspective. I only have the largest aquarium I have is a 20-gallon. Otocincluses are definitely, I would put them before the Plecos. I just brought up the Plecos first because that's what first came into my mind. Definitely getting Otocinclus into your tank. I think they get into about the 1.5 to 2 inch range in size, but they go through and do almost the same thing that the Plecos do, just not at a higher rate, I would say. So they would go through and even on the glass of the aquarium, I would say more so on the glass, they do more work than the Plecos do. Plecos stay more towards wood and like the Anubises in the plant foliage, whereas the Otocincluses will go directly on the glass as well and clean the glass from algae too, from an algae breakout or just algae that's building up continuously on your tanks, right? From nutrients, from light, just the cycle of life. So number 3 will go to an Otocinclus is what I think is another must-have in your aquarium. Now on to number 4. Number 4, I love them. Definitely have a couple of them in your aquarium. I have at least 2 in any nano tank that I have, and even my larger tank, I have 3. And that's going to be your Nerite snails. These guys decimate any algae breakout except for hair algae. Hair algae is a whole different game, and you can go watch my hair algae video that I did. Typically, I treat when I have hair algae, but any other algae, not black hair algae, so hair algae again, they'll go through and decimate this. This is even on the glass. So you'll start seeing one going through in the glass. You'll see algae on the glass as well because I haven't scraped it, and it just starts to take it over and eat it off the glass too. And those are your Nerite snails. So you can go through and get those, and you can add them into any water conditions. They're very versatile to have in your aquarium. Definitely highly recommend getting a couple Nerite snails, and they have some pretty cool coloration. They even have ones that have like horns on them. So I really highly recommend adding those. They definitely help out my tank and make my life a lot easier in terms of maintenance. I don't have time to do maintenance, especially with the amount of tanks that I'm starting to have in this studio. So definitely recommend getting some Nerite snails to add into your aquarium as well. Now, the last one isn't as much as traditional in terms of what you're going to be going through and adding, but I still like to have them in my tank. They do eat some of the algae, but really mostly waste. And that's just Neo-Caridina shrimp in your aquarium. Definitely highly recommend getting any type of shrimp. We talked about the Amano shrimp at the very beginning, but just Neo-Caridina shrimp in general definitely help out with waste breakdown from the fish and also any algae, not as much as the Amano shrimp, right? They're very slow at eating algae, especially when it's on like the substrate or any of that matter. But diatom algae, that's not diatom algae, diatom from breakdown of plants, but going through and eating that as well. Definitely highly recommend going through and getting some Neo-Caridina shrimp just because that's mostly what folks have from a water parameter standpoint, GH and KH, whereas Caridina shrimp are more sensitive, and I'll be coming out with a Caridina shrimp tip, how to keep Caridina shrimp, because I'm becoming very successful in keeping, and that's where my main point of focus right now is going to be, is building my Caridina shrimp game. So take the Caridina shrimp out, go to Neo-Caridina. Highly recommend cherry shrimp, or even going through and getting blue velvets. Those have been very resilient against any water parameter change, so highly recommend that. So let's recap this. So number 1 was the Amano shrimp. We're going to move number 2 down to number 3 and go with number 3 at the beginning, which is the Otocincluses. Highly recommend having some Otocincluses in your tank. Number 3, Plecos. Again, if you're more in the nano tank game, I wouldn't put Plecos in anything probably under, I'm going to add it into a 10-gallon tank, 1, and it's going to be 1.5 inches, I think, is the one I'm going to add, and it's the orange Pleco. So just be aware of tank size and the size of the Plecos. When they do get larger, I do have, fortunately, someone that is breeding Plecos that I can give a larger healthy Pleco back to, and then get a smaller juvenile one to grow out for them again. And then you have Nerite snails, must have as well. And then going through to number 5, just Neo-Caridina shrimp in general in your tank and aquarium for algae and breakdown of matter too, especially from fish waste. Well, those are my tips today. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment area. And if you listen this far, please take this moment to like and subscribe. It totally helps out the channel, and I truly, truly do appreciate it if you do. And again, comment. If you have any questions, if you have any other fish or shrimp that you recommend from an algae combatant or fighter or gladiator, please throw those in the comments as well. Helps everyone out. But until next time, I'll see you all in the next video.